East Africa is building some of the most ambitious football stadiums the region has ever seen. In Kenya, there is the massive 60,000-seat Talanta Stadium. In Tanzania, Arusha is getting a brand new 30,000-seat stadium. And in Uganda, Hoima has already unveiled a modern 20,000-seat football complex. From the outside, these stadiums look like they are almost ready for Africa's biggest football tournament. But there is one problem. Looking ready is not the same as being ready. AFCON is not just about putting seats inside a stadium and growing a beautiful football pitch. CAF demands much more, from dressing rooms and media facilities to security, player movement, broadcasting, technology, training grounds, and the entire matchday operation. So today, we are going inside the story of three of East Africa's most important new stadiums: Hoima, Arusha, and Talanta Stadium. Which one is actually closest to being AFCON-ready, and which one still has work to do? Let's start in Uganda, Hoima Stadium, the stadium that was finished but not finished. In Hoima, a stadium that once existed only as a construction project has already become a reality. Hoima City Stadium was structurally completed and commissioned in 2025 with a capacity of around 20,000 spectators. On paper, this sounds like the easiest story of the three. The stadium is standing, the seats are installed, the pitch is there, the surrounding facilities are taking shape. So you might ask, what left to worry about? Well, this is where the AFCON story gets interesting. CAF early assessment found that although Hoima was structurally complete, there were important operational issues that needed attention, including spectator segregation, circulation routes for players, media and VIPs, dressing room requirements and media facilities. In other words, the stadium was built, but the tournament operation still had to be perfected. And that distinction is incredibly important because during AFCON, thousands of people are moving through the stadium at the same time. Players cannot be crossing paths with spectators. VIPs need controlled access. Journalists need dedicated facilities. Broadcast crews need their own infrastructure. Security needs to work almost invisibly, and every one of these systems has to function together. Ugandan officials have maintained that the remaining issues can be addressed before the next CAF inspection. And now the pressure is on because Hoima isn't racing to finish the concrete. It is racing to prove that the finished stadium can actually operate at CAF's required level. Now we move across the border to Tanzania, and this is where the story changes dramatically. Arusha is getting something completely new. The Samia Suluhu Hassan Stadium is a planned 30,000-seat modern sports facility in the Olomoti area of Arusha. And visually, this stadium is becoming one of the most impressive projects in the entire AFCON 2027 preparation. Its design is heavily connected to Tanzania's identity, with inspiration drawn from Tanzanite and Mount Kilimanjaro. But this isn't just about appearance. The stadium is being built specifically to become one of Tanzania's major football venues for AFCON 2027. And by mid-2026, the project had entered its final stretch. That is significant because, unlike Hoima, which had already been structurally completed, Arusha's challenge has been getting an entirely new stadium across the finishing line. And Tanzania has been pushing hard. The government has already maintained that the stadium will be ready in time for the tournament. Recent reporting has described the project as nearing completion. But again, completion is only the beginning. A stadium can look 99% finished and still have critical systems that need testing, certification, and approval. The question for Arusha isn't simply, does the stadium look finished? The real question is, can it operate as a world-class AFCON venue? That means pitch quality, lighting, broadcasting, security, media operations, player facilities, spectator movement, and everything else CAF expects from a major continental tournament. Arusha may be one of the most beautiful stadiums in East Africa, but AFCON will judge it by something much more important: performance. And then there is Nairobi, Talanta Stadium, Kenya's biggest bet. Talanta Stadium, or officially the Raila Odinga International Stadium, this is the heavyweight of the three. With a planned capacity of approximately 60,000 spectators, Talanta is not simply another AFCON venue. It is Kenya's flagship stadium project, and unlike Hoima and Arusha, Talanta is being built at a scale designed to accommodate one of the biggest football crowds in the region. The structure is enormous. The roof is almost completely transformed. The sitting ball is taking shape. The interior spaces are being fitted out. The pitch has been established, and the stadium is moving into the final stages of construction. By June 2026, Kenyan officials were reporting roughly 91% completion, with work continuing on ICT, broadcasting, spectator amenities, fencing, landscaping, and other final systems. And this is where Talanta has an interesting advantage. It was designed from the beginning as a modern international football facility. The stadium includes modern changing rooms, VIP facilities, media infrastructure, and technology intended to meet CAF requirements. There are also dedicated training pitches being developed around the complex. But here is the uncomfortable question. Can Can Kenya finish everything around the stadium at the same speed? Because AFCON readiness is bigger than the stadium itself. You need training grounds, you need transport, you need security, you need hotels, you need fan access, you need media operations, you need power, you need communication, and all of these pieces have to work together. Talanta can be 100% complete, but if the surrounding infrastructure isn't ready, the job isn't finished. That is the real test. And this is where the comparisons becomes fascinating. Hoima's biggest question is, can Uganda address the operational and CAF compliance issues quickly enough? Arusha question is, can Tanzania take a spectacular new stadium through the final stages of completion, testing and certification? And Talanta's question is, can Kenya complete the stadium and all the supporting infrastructure needed around it? 3 countries, 3 stadiums, 3 completely different challenges, and yet they are all racing toward the same deadline. This is perhaps the most important part of the entire story, because ultimately CAF has the final say, not YouTube, not politicians, not contractors, and not even the fans. CAF. Earlier inspections showed that the gap between construction progress and true tournament readiness was significant. CAF's delivery timeline requires competitions venues to be fully operational before the tournament, with January 2027 identified as the point for full operational readiness. That means the clock is no longer just counting down to construction completion, it is counting down to testing, certification, training, security preparation, broadcast preparation, and eventually match day. So, who is actually ahead? If we judge purely by physical construction, all 3 projects tell very different stories. Hoima has the advantage of already having completed main structure and is now dealing with corrective and operational requirements. Arusha is pushing through the final phase of a completely new stadium, and Talanta is approaching the final stages of one of the largest stadium projects in East Africa. But there is an important lesson here. The stadium that looks the most finished isn't automatically the stadium that is most ready. AFCON readiness is a system. The pitch is one part, the seats are one part, the roof is one part, the dressing rooms are one part. But when 20,000, 30,000 or even 60,000 people arrive for a major international match, everything has to work at the same time. So, are East Africa's AFCON 2027 stadiums really ready? The honest answer, not yet. But that doesn't mean they won't be. Hoima has already crossed the biggest construction hurdle, but still has important compliance and operational work. Arusha is entering the final stretch of a spectacular new stadium, and Talanta is rapidly becoming one of the continent's most ambitious new football venues. The real race is no longer about who can build the biggest stadium. It is about who can deliver a stadium that works perfectly when the cameras turn on, the fans arrive, the teams walk out, and the first whistle blows. Because in 2027, East Africa won't simply be hosting AFCON, it will be putting its infrastructure on display to the entire continent. And when that moment comes, there will be nowhere to hide. So, which one of these three stadiums do you think will be the most impressive when AFCON 2027 finally arrives? Hoima, Arusha, or Talanta? Let me know in the comments. And if you want to follow the transformation of these stadiums from construction site to AFCON venues, make sure you subscribe to Urban Explorer 254. We document Africa's urban transformation one frame at a time. Thank you for watching and see you in the next exploration.